Magic is found in every room, where people connect over a shared purpose. Luke, Hannah and Chris explore the role of purpose, courage, mindset and culture in every leader's quest for transformational performance.
Hello and welcome to Magic in the Room. I'm Luke Freeman, and today have a pretty cool conversation with Mike Day. Mike is the founder and chief executive of TribalHub, and Mike, I'll let you tell us about TribalHub in a minute. But today we're in Northern California. I can kind of look out the window here, and trees and sunshine and a fire. Hopefully that doesn't, make its way over here. But yeah, we are at Red Hawk Casino Hotel Resort, just northeast of Sacramento. This is my first time here, and they were gracious enough to let us use their conference room. So, but we're gearing up for a conference. So you want to tell us a little bit about TribalHub, introduce yourself,
Sure.
What's the story,
Sure.
and then we can jump in here.
Sure, love to. Well, we are at Red Hawk, and it's one of our regional events. So we do 7 regional events each year, and we're actually on a little road trip. We were just in Southern California, now Northern California, and then we're going to be up in Portland. But the point behind all of those is TribalHub is the largest group of technology-minded executives, professionals from tribes all across the nation. And we say technology-minded because technology is not just the IT people today. Just about everybody, pretty much everybody listening to this, you're a technologist today. I would guess you have tons of technology on your person today. You got phones, maybe smartwatches. You probably left a house that's all connected. So all of us have something to do with technology. And in tribes, that's a pretty big deal. You've got a lot going on in tribal organizations. I have been working with tribes myself for over 35 years. I started out my career working for a small tribe in Michigan and sort of worked my way through that, and also was out in Vegas for a while, building casinos there and outside of Pennsylvania. Doing some management of other Native American organizations as well. But I've had a lot of contact with tribes throughout my career, and that's where TribalHub really came around. It was the idea of there's 574 federally recognized tribes out there across the country. And I realized fairly early on, when things were really booming in a tribe where I started, where it was very small, but quickly, very, very quickly got to be a large size. Tremendous amount of growth, and I was putting it all together with no playbook.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody else. There was nobody else out there to really. Who do you reach out to? It was very unique. So we decided to reach out, or I decided to reach out at this point, and just invite some other tribes, and said, hey, maybe we should be talking about what we're trying to do with these hundreds of systems we're trying to put in across gaming and hospitality, health, all the membership services, all the government, police, fire, emergency services, et cetera, all of those pieces, and other economic development opportunities. So how do you know all those systems, and do you really need to know them all yourself if really tribes across the nation are doing this? Probably not. So that's what started this, and it's grown since then. So we just had our 25th anniversary this last year, and here we are.
Yeah, it's amazing. And we're going to talk about a specific program we're working on for this episode. But I think for folks listening, whether you work for a tribe or for another business, or you're just interested in your own leadership, one reason that I thought it would be really interesting to talk to Mike is because we're talking today about a problem, like identifying a skill gap that exists and then creating a strategy on how we close that skill gap. And so while we're going to talk about this specific program that's seeking to address a skill gap, I really think that this conversation, hopefully it's inspiring for people who say, hey, my team needs to learn this, or my team needs to grow in this way. It really just to help you think through, like, what all do we consider and how do we identify those challenges? And, Mike, as you were sharing, I think an interesting thing that I'd love your insight on here is how young especially like the gaming industry, tribal gaming is, right? And it reminds me of, the social media industry, right? Is really not very old, right? Right now, the AI industry, you've got 5 or 6 big players, but it's just a baby. We don't understand the pros and cons yet, right? We're just learning things. And I think tribal gaming is similar. It really is 25 years old as an industry. It's not manufacturing. It's not healthcare. There's not 100 years of best practice that's been built and iterated. And so people like yourself, when you were in that technology role as a leader, like you really were creating a playbook from nothing. Like, what can we learn from commercial organizations? What can we learn from best practices from what's happening in other sectors, and really applying it? I mean, what was that like? And I mean, what was that experience? I mean, it feels kind of Wild Westy to me.
Well, you are right. Gaming, all gaming for tribes across the nation really only got started, I believe it was the beginning of 1989. 88, end of 88, I think, the Indian Gaming Reorganization Act, which that's really what allowed it in the first place. So it really allowed real casino, Vegas style, let's call it, gaming to start happening. So in that time frame, we've seen growth, but as many people listening again may be aware, not every casino started at day one. Some of them are fairly new, so there are a lot that are much younger. Even in the last 10, 20 years, there's been a tremendous growth. So a very, very young industry, and very difficult. It was incredibly difficult to get started. They're not regulated the same. States regulate differently. Each tribe regulates differently. They have different requirements for their systems, their internal controls, everything that they have to put together, how they report. So it's not a one size fits all for certain. And that makes things, that made life difficult. And really, everybody was trying to figure out, how do I make this work? But even though there's differences, on the flip side, there's even more similarities. And it was the similarities that people were really wasting their time rebuilding the wheel on. These are things that had already been done, and they didn't have to be doing them completely on their own, and they really should have been working with other people to get this done. But it just speaks to the fact that there's just been a lot of change. Gaming, especially gaming, and economic development to some level now, especially even more so now, is just making changes happen very, very quickly. You mentioned AI, other things that are happening now. I've spoken many times at our events. All of our people, our top topics at all of our events today happen to be cybersecurity and AI. The rate of change is exponential. We're all aware of it, but how do you really deal with that level, that amount of change in an organization when it is changing the functions of operations across the board? And going back to that fact that tribes they're not just one thing. They're not just gaming and hospitality. We see that's real visible, but there is a lot of healthcare, and healthcare is complicated for a private hospital, and it's just as complicated for a tribal clinic. And the same thing with all government services. It's just as complicated, and they have the same concerns. And how are they going to continue to stay in front and be able to compete? Because there's some competition for services and other things they're providing. They have to be able to do that. And so there's a lot of operations and a great level of change, and the role of technology people has had to change as this has been happening. The role today is vastly different than it was when I was first starting, and I think that's a lot of this program we're talking about, is really sort of leading up to, what do you really need to be the best, technology professional?
Which it feels like that's really where we are kind of in history with this program anyway. Is, you mentioned not reinventing the wheel, and it feels like, as you have observed, and I know we've observed in other contexts, whether that's doing strategic planning or workforce development with tribes, that there are gaps in how we are developing and really skilling intentionally people in really key roles. So we met, I don't know how long it's been, three or 4 years ago, probably. I mean, we're a young company, so it can't have been that very long ago. And I think like being able to speak at events and being able to attend some things and come to your annual conference, like just seeing the breadth of what you're doing and the services you're providing, it's really felt like a natural fit. And so we started talking about, hey, there's no certification right now for people who are technology leaders inside tribal organizations. You look around and you see, I can go get certified in a lot of things. There are nationally recognized certifications for different technical skills, for different soft skills, but there was nothing that really was meeting the needs of this niche of technology leaders inside a tribal context. And so we're going to kick off the very first cohort and group of people later this fall of the Certified Tribal Technology Practitioner.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really exciting. And so give us, I would love to hear for you, like, when did this idea, 'cause I think this is your brainchild, when did this first come into mind? And like, what are the needs that you think it meets?
Well, first, this is we didn't come up with this overnight. As a matter of fact, I've been thinking about it many years, actually, probably most of my career, because I've watched how technology has developed and what skill sets are really required for people to be effective. And when you have effective people in the organization, they make the organization effective. So even though there's a personal growth piece to it, it's important because success, winning as an organization means you've got to have this skill set. It's what's going to help you drive your operations and everything you're doing. But I've had the opportunity through TribalHub, through my own career, to work with lots of organizations. I've employed myself hundreds, if not thousands, of IT professionals over the years, and I've worked with plenty of IT directors and CIOs, and we all share some of our concerns. I have watched the frustration of really incredibly smart technology people who are lacking some of the skills, the basic skills, even skills that they probably could achieve, but they're lacking some things in their career or their education or their understanding of what to do, maybe some self-awareness even, and other pieces that I think we're going to talk about a bit in here that would really help them do this. I don't think anybody listening to this has never heard the story that an IT person, and this is the way we think of it, they come into a meeting and everybody zones out when they start talking because it's bits and bytes and acronyms and all sorts of things, and they're very proud of the technology and the hard work they put into it, but they're not really communicating with the audience, and it ends up being a failure. Well, if these are also the people who are supposed to be changing your environment, moving these, entire organization projects forward and strategizing where you're going, how are you going to do that if they're unable to meet people with where they're at and really help them to do that?
Yeah.
So there's some skills now that the job is far different. You have to have these skill sets. You have to understand who you're talking to. You have to understand your organization. And of course, you still have to have a technology background, but it's more critical now than ever, and it's really it's sort of the game changer of how organizations can move forward.
Yeah, and the requirements haven't become more simple, right? And all the different areas that someone who's a leader in technology has to master have not become less, right? It's just more and more, and every year it feels like it's piling on more. So you've got these folks that now they're not just going above people's heads when they're talking about, well, our internet doesn't work because it rained yesterday, and that means the switch. I don't even know, obviously, right? I'm not a tech guy, but now they have to talk about, where's our data kept, and hey, this contract with our particular cloud vendor, or whatever it is, right? I mean, it's like really complicated things that people need tooling to understand how to lead well and be persuasive as leaders, right? Because even if they get the technology information, right, they've got all of that in their toolbox. If they can't be persuasive, the council that they report to, or their business committee, or the C-suite, right? How do you convince someone to pay $500,000 for something that they can't see, feel, or touch, and they don't see that the internet's any faster?
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
That's a challenge.
No, they don't. they can't see it or understand it. That gap has really it's bubbled up more. So it's just way more apparent because there's some good things that have happened. So I talked about the fact that we're all a bit more technologists, just the ordinary people,
Yeah.
even grandma and grandpa. Let's admit it. They, even most of them are using some technology now.
Mm-hmm.
And our kids and younger people are definitely using it. And the people who are employed now are using it more. They become more skilled. They also want to use it more. So their demand is far greater.
Mm-hmm.
And their demand is greater, but they also see, the piece they're missing is they don't look at everything that it takes to put that together. They see a specific tool, they see the value of it, they want it, and
Yeah.
they want to put it together. And it's the technology team who's got to talk about how to do that holistically across an entire organization to make that effective, safe, secure, effective, truthful, right?
Yep.
Everything's
Yep.
going to work correctly, and that you're not obviously wasting dollars and doing other things you shouldn't be doing. So, but that in working with each of those operational people, the interaction is far greater today than it ever was in the past.
Yeah.
Once again, it just leads to the fact of we need a different level of skills, especially a lot of these soft skills for our leaders today. And they just have to understand operations far greater.
Right.
I actually have been speaking and wrote an article about how I believe the CIO and COO positions from a lot of duties are actually sort of merging.
Yep.
The CIO has to be very much like a COO in what they're doing. It is operations, operations, operations.
Yep.
Technology is meant to change the operations. It's not there for really any other reason.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to put it on top of this set of operations here, 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 and here to make them better, faster, more complete,
Yeah.
either drive more revenue or provide better service, right?
Yeah.
Or more fun to a gaming customer. But if you don't understand the operations, you can't be a part of the conversation. And then how could you then tell them which technology they need correctly, right? Or strategize for it. So all of that.
Yeah. And then one of the things that we've talked about, all of that exists, if you're a technology leader, really in any industry with the rate of change and all of these trends, but then you layer on top of that, this unique context of working in tribal government or tribal enterprise.
Yeah.
And if folks come in from the outside, they might be a really skilled technician, but if they don't understand the context, you mentioned soft skills earlier, they don't have the soft skills to be able to work and move in the right pace and understand the values of the tribe. They face a whole nother set of challenges. I mean, how have you seen that play out?
Yeah, so I'll start kind of with it happens at all positions. There's a frustration that happens when people come in from any commercial industry or even other government and they come into a tribal environment. The people who work for tribes are probably all nodding their head because they realize there's things that are different when you work for a tribe. There's things you have to learn, especially people who've been there for quite a while. But there's frustrations because they don't know how to navigate. They don't know what their resources are. They're lacking these things. That's not that they don't want to be effective. They're just really unfamiliar with how to navigate through this because most people, they have a commercial job. They work for one type of business.
Yeah.
And that business has got a certain type of executive. They do one thing, they do it really well, and they are required to support it. When you're in a tribe, everybody reports up to a tribal board, which is a governmental unit.
Yeah.
Got to understand that. You have to understand how that works. You have to understand what it is they want, what it is they need, and how to work through strategies that make sense for the tribe. We talked about the various divisions in a tribe, right, or verticals, and government is very different than health, is very different than gaming, is very different than economic development. You and I have spoke before, Luke, about the fact that a person coming in and giving the exact same strategy or speech to a group of health administrators and doctors that they give to the executive team of a casino that's all about profit and the bottom line.
Yeah.
And then trying to take that to a tribal board who has a vastly different what they're looking at.
Right.
This is not going to work.
Yep.
You're trying to drive something, but you have to realize that you you cannot do it that way. You might have done it before. It will not work in this environment, and you will get frustrated. You have to understand how to do this, who you're working with, and some techniques to work successfully around it.
Yeah, I think especially if you're coming from an organization with a profit motive, it is just a complete reset of mindset and perspective to come in and say, hey, I'm not necessarily, I mean, regardless of what division of tribal enterprise, government, health I'm in, profit is not our primary motive. Profit is a means to an end to help sustain a community.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
All of these things only exist so that we can have the sustainable health of a community and the sustainable power and resources for the sovereignty and self-determination of a community. And that means that our metrics are different. It means that our timelines are different. I know that there have been executive leaders for tribes that have talked about their 100-year vision, right? Where are we going to be in 100 years? And there might be some mega organizations, right? Back in the days, Jack Welch might have had a 100-year vision, but like this is a real community. It's a family business. Yeah. And if you're coming in from something that's not a family business to some degree and don't have the soft skills or the mindset to think differently about how you develop people,
that's right,
how you communicate and work across divisions or across departments, you're going to really struggle.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we've talked about is, yes, there's all these technological challenges. And even, what's the role of the federal government? Do I understand who my contacts are at the federal government if I'm doing a grant-funded projects? Do I understand grant funding, right? Or fund accounting to some degree? There's all of these technical pieces, but also, do I understand that the person who's coming in as an 18-year-old into my department for frontline help desk, whatever, like the vision of the tribe is that I develop that person, and probably one of my top 3 goals, right? We all have competing priorities, but one of my top 3 goals is to help that person build a career over the next 20, 30 years. Yep. So how do I do that? How do I set that person up for success? Yes, there are some private and publicly traded non-tribal organizations that have some similar approach, but it's different, right? There's a level of belief, there's a level of conviction about how much we are committed to the development of the people inside the organization. It's just a different scope and scale to that.
Yeah, for certain.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I just think that's really important. All of those pieces, all those points you made, they're very, very different. You talked about 2 things we said all the time in almost all of our engagements. Tribes share certain things. They share those verticals that I've talked about several times. But every tribe, no matter who they are, sovereignty is number one.
Yeah.
Got to protect sovereignty. You're not a tribe without it. And if you don't understand that and you're trying to lead an IT and trying to wonder why contracts have to be written and different and there's certain things that have to be done different, then you're really not understanding what you're there for, because that is a basis of what's happening. And then sustainability or self-sufficiency. So self-sufficiency is the second piece. That is really what all of the enterprises are about. In the end, it's to be self-sufficient. If there were no other funding, we don't need it, right? We're good. We are an entity that's been here. We're going to be here. And it's part of what makes really working in a tribal environment in a way, you almost feel better. You feel better about it than you do a lot of times in the commercial world, because it doesn't all boil down maybe to shareholders' equity or other pieces. Now, not that I'm not a capitalist. I am. I like that piece. But when you know you're also doing this and building a community, that's a good feeling. It's nice. And it's you know you're doing some things for the right reason. So it's a great place to be. We just, we need to help people get there and be more successful. And in helping the, aspiring leaders and current leaders to have these skill sets faster, it's just going to give a boost to every organization.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we designed this certification, the Certified Tribal Technology Professional, to address both of these problems. Some of the technical gaps where people are reinventing the wheels and coming in not quite with their eyes wide open,
Right.
and some of the soft skills that maybe haven't been as important in their career before, but now are really critical and key. So let's talk through that a little bit. I mean, what are some of the modules? What are some of the ways that on the technology side, things that maybe people haven't thought about before? And by the way, I don't think this is just for people transitioning into tribes from outside of tribes careers. You might be that supervisor who wants to move into a management role, but you've never touched a contract in your life, or you've never negotiated with a vendor in your life, or you've never had the authority to choose what cloud system are we going to use, right? So tell me, like, from the technology side, what are your highest priorities that whenever we get folks together, they're going to be upskilled in?
Yeah, so one of the ways I've been talking about this as we've been putting it together is I try to associate it to something that's maybe more understandable, and so I've been using the whole carpenter idea here, so I'm going to use it again here. If you wanted to become a carpenter, you would go to this type of a class, and in that class, when you left, you would have the saw, the hammer. You would have nails. You would have the skill saw and the router and all of those pieces.
Yeah.
We're looking at this being a 1 week class at this point, so the expectation isn't that you're going to be an expert in using each of those tools. But when you walked in, you might not have known what they all were. You might not have known how even to use them, or the purpose for each of them. You might not have even known that some of them, the newer tools, existed. You might still be using, some old tool and be like, "Well, I had no idea this existed." That's what we're going to do in this certification. We are going to give you the tool sets to leave and be better at what you do.
Yeah.
We're going to do that in technical skills, and then we're also, I think, when we talked about some of the soft skills, that's the piece. Is there room for improvement in creating strategies? Is there room for improvement in public speaking or speaking in front of different boards and executive teams? Everybody, there's a level of improvement, and I would venture to say it's probably even higher in some of the technical people who maybe haven't had that opportunity in the past, and yet now, in order to be successful, they have to be in almost every meeting, and they have to be really, really engaging. And they have to be able to tell the story of why technology is so important and why we have to invest in it and why this change is necessary. And they need to get everybody on board to be a part of a change. And change is different. We could have made a whole thing on change, quite frankly. It's it's difficult. But so this is a bit of each. This is a bit of some hardcore, more technical things that have to be done by anybody who's in technology, and then it is some of the leadership skills. So speaking specifically to some of the things, just to give you some examples, we have some of the things we've put together. We, of course, we want to give a bit about tribal history and tribal culture. If you don't know the organization you work for, or organization, or even industry, and I hate to call tribes industry, I call them community. If you don't understand who you're working for, I think that's problematic. You should understand a bit more about it.
And I think that's really empowering too for like someone who's maybe grown up working just with their own tribe or just with their local tribe, but they're ready for their career to take off, and they don't know what the governance looks like in another tribe or what the values are and themes across the country. Yeah. So I think this can be a career accelerator too, just in understanding the wider picture of vendors working with tribes in the technology space and the priorities that different tribes have, other than just, hey, I've been in this spot maybe for the last 5 years, and I want to understand the industry that I'm in already more deeply.
That's right. And so I think that's important. You really have to understand a bit more about it. And I use the example there of, if you work at Ford, you would know something about GM. Yeah. You would know something about Chrysler. You would know something about Tesla. Most people who work for tribes don't know the things they need to know about this entire environment they work in. And they should, and they'd be better for it, and they will be better with their own organization knowing that. But then we talk about, we talk about some of the things that are more specific to how you can put them into effect in a tribe, what makes it different. So data sovereignty goes across a whole host of things when we're talking about to put things in the cloud, not put them in the cloud, where you talk about all the things of figuring out how to classify your data and really put security on it. All across cybersecurity, all of these things, it's intricate to what you're doing. You need to understand what it means, and you need to understand how you can get ahead of it and really do things right, no matter
Yeah.
what you're doing. If it's using data, if it's using cloud services, if it's part of cybersecurity, you shouldn't be guessing what's happening. We will give you the basics on how that works. I mean, that's the idea. It's a question for everybody. They should know that. We have a bunch of systems that are changing. Even this year, we've got in health services, we've got a electronic health portal, but you're working with Indian Health Service and not necessarily someone else. So how does that all work? How does that work between different tribes? What should I be looking for there? So if you're on the health side, you'd see that. Membership, different membership services. Every tribe is based on their tribal citizens, but are you aware of what's happening in the resources in building perhaps a citizen portal where the citizens can be more active and figure out what they can do? Just general structures, all of those things are really important. But even when you look at incident response planning, how does incident response look in a tribal organization versus a commercial organization? They're not the same. They're not the same people making decisions. There's different things that happen. You should be prepared for that. And then who are all your contacts? How do you know all of the people you should be connected to in the resources? That's also a really big piece of it. When you leave here, you're going to have a whole list of resources, and I would bet that we're going to be sharing something with everybody, and they didn't know it existed, but it's right there in front of them.
Yeah.
And had they had that on day one in their job, how much more effective could they have been? So
Yeah.
again, that entire tool set idea. Here's the tools. And then, of course, Luke, we're working with your team, and that's where the soft skills come into play, because this isn't just about these technology things. We are going to cover that. We're going to cover how they're different in tribes. We're going to cover what it means and things you really need to know to be successful. But then we've got to talk about what are some of these soft skills that you really have to improve in order to set your career up and your tribe for greater success.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're excited about tackling those and digging into them. And I would say, most important of all, if we as leaders don't understand how to lead ourselves, we don't have clarity about what we believe in our own values, it is very difficult to influence the team of people that reports to us, that we have responsibility for. So we will dig into that.
Yeah.
Why do you, as a participant in this certification, why do you want to develop? What are your goals? What do you think is good in leadership? What do you think is not good in leadership? We all have those folks in our past that we think, man, this person saw me, they invested in me, they cared, they let me take chances, they let me try things my own way, they gave me resources to help me be successful. We have that person, but we don't always become that person. It doesn't happen on accident. We become those kinds of leaders on purpose. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about just some really specific skills to help outfit people and let folks practice with that. So we're going to talk about how to be a coach. So how do we help people solve their own problems? How do we help them think through the challenges that they're working on day to day, rather than just, oh, well, here's the solution. Well, here's how I do it, so you need to do it the same way. And so many of us fall into that, and it's just because that's what we've learned, right? Yeah. Maybe that's where our comfort zone is, and we need some real skill to be able to take a different approach. So we're going to learn some coaching. We're also going to learn how to build teams. So how do we think about communicating effectively with our teams? How do we think about getting the right skill sets together? How do we think about even identifying high skill versus low skill in people? How do we have effective one-on-one conversations? How do we build development plans with our team? And by the way, another thing that is really hard to do if we don't have our own personal development plan. So that's something that's going to be an outcome of this certification. People are going to walk away with priorities for the next year What are things that they need to develop? What are strengths that they can leverage? What are areas of weakness that they need to focus on and improve? And what are some really specific things that they can do to work on those things and make those improvements? So we'll do that. And then we'll also talk about some of the things that you mentioned, communication.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who wants to be a leader in technology in the tribal space should be able to walk into a boardroom and tell why they believe they need resource, why they believe choice A is better than choice B,
Yep.
and be able to do it effectively and confidently
And non-technical.
and non-technically,
Yeah.
right? How do they create a narrative around it? How do they share examples
Mm-hmm.
that are going to resonate with people's hearts as much as it does their minds? Because that's how you win the mind over. And so there's some specific techniques around all of those things. Change management. How do we manage the stakeholders, our peers in other departments? How do we get their buy-in?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we push projects through all the way to completion and really create champions for the projects that we're already bought into? All of these things have some step-by-step specific skills that people are going to learn. And then kind of to get into the nuts and bolts, I think it's probably helpful for people to know too, like there's going to be a pre-certification assessment.
Yeah, I love that, by the way.
Yeah.
What does that look like again? So we should probably tell everybody what that looks
Yeah,
like, 'cause
so
I like that piece.
There'll be an online assessment where we can look at technical skill know-how and also some soft skill assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the certification, there will be a post-assessment. And that really comes in the form of a certification test. And so we're going to have a pretty wide-ranging view of the skill level of people whenever they're coming out of this. And you're going to have a view, if you're a participant, of your own skill level, kind of know your own strengths and weaknesses. And it's not just all going to be, Scantron, fill out the bubbles, multiple choice. There's going to be some parts of this assessment that are instructor led. So we're going to do some simulations during this certification that teams are going to have to work on. And we're going to see how people communicate with each other in real time in a simulation. And we're going to give people feedback on that and even some rating on, hey, emotional intelligence, here's something that you need to think of. Communication skill, here's something that you need to think of. Empowering others, here's some strengths or weaknesses there. And then we'll close out the certification, which is, by the way, a week on site together. With an individual coaching session for everyone. So they'll get an assessment, they'll get all of this learning and content in a community environment, right? Interactive together at tables, learning with the people who are really your peers in the industry. And then at the end, getting that time to sit down one-on-one with a coach as you build out your development plan and set your goals going forward.
And when we were talking about it, the other piece, and I'll put you on the spot a little bit here,
Yeah.
Luke, was I like the fact that, having been a IT leader for 35 years, leading IT teams, I would have multiple people go to this from my leadership team, maybe even myself, but definitely the people who I felt were up and comers, right? They could be at any level, but they're people that I think could develop. Or if I'm about to put them in front of more people or more operations, or they're in the change management business at all, which is a lot of your team these days, this is the type of program that's for them. But in doing that, I'm going to send some more senior people your way who probably are further along the soft skills scale than some of the people at the beginning of this. But by doing that assessment, I like that it's not one size fits all. That's good. Everybody can go to it and still they can find that they can increase their skills just starting where they're at to where they leave, right? Is that how it's designed?
Yeah. I mean, the number one determining factor on if someone's going to get something out of a development program is if they want to get something out of a development program. Because none of us, we don't arrive. I mean, and I'll just be vulnerable here. I mean, I kind of same as you. I regularly am working with executive and board level folks, facilitating and leading and coaching, but I have so much room to grow, right? Like I need to continue to grow my soft skills and my hard skills, right? As every new piece of technology comes out, even as like a soft skill type guy, consultant leadership guy, well, if I don't understand AI, I am sunk.
Yeah.
Right. For me to lead my company effectively, lead the people that I have responsibility to create a healthy company for,
Yeah.
and their families that depend on it, I better understand the technology. And it doesn't matter how much I mastered it 2 years ago. And I better continue to be a mature leader and grow and develop. And I don't want to stop. I don't want to plateau and be stagnant.
Yeah.
So I think if you're coming into this with that mindset, there might be some things that you've heard before, or concepts that aren't new. And I think being able to apply them to yourselves, whether you're first year manager role or whether you've been an executive for a while, I think walking out with a development plan and some third party objective feedback on some areas that you are really strong and also can continue to develop. I mean, it's worth it. It's worth the time.
Yeah, I like that, and I think that speaks to the other point that's really important here is that it's what the CTTP program is and what it's not. Just importantly, what it's not. It is from a technology standpoint. Lots of people can go to specific technology classes. You can get certified in Microsoft or Oracle or any of the flavors of products you're using. This is not what this is about. This is organizationally really building yourself as a technology leader, moving along the technology professional and leadership path. So you can be more professional, you can be a better benefit in your career and a better benefit to your organization and just improve that level of success. But what we're really looking for is anyone along the spectrum, whether you're, even starting your career to your, maybe even leading the organization. Those are good candidates. But the candidates that it is not for are the people who have no desire. They have no desire to manage. They have no desire to move forward, and they do exist, right? We'd be lying if we said they don't exist. They're out there in the organization, satisfied with where they're at. They want to stay there, or they don't really want to change. And if if they're in that space, then they're probably not the ones you would target for this program and this CTTP. Because the goal here is for us to really help out each organization in doing this, and really help those individuals that want to succeed, and they want their teams to succeed. And maybe they're Native Americans that they want to move through this, but it can be anybody. And the idea is this is meant for anybody who wants to help that organization, this specifically tribes, right, move forward and just be better for it. And that's what we've developed this program for. We've been asking for it for years. I've been thinking about it for a year. I've had lots of people ask if we were ever going to put this together. And so we have, and it's a real certification. It's not this, there will be a test. You do pass or fail. Not everybody. Well, we certainly hope everybody's going to be able to pass it, but there's a test. You have to understand what you've, what we're giving you. You have to actually pass that in order to move forward. And then there's going to be some continuing education as well. So, each year you'll have to continue on the journey. We'll make that reasonable, and reasonable to achieve. But it's a certification that you can carry with you throughout your career.
Yeah. So, okay. Details. If you're interested in this, you can go to TribalHub.com.
That's right.
You can reach out to either one of us. We're pretty easy to find on LinkedIn or wherever. And November.
November.
2025. First group. We're limiting it to 20.
We are.
And we are discounting this first one because we're going to learn a lot too.
Yes, we are.
So
we fully expect, that we might have to tweak it slightly after this, but it's going to be really exciting, I think, with this first group and the people who get to carry the certification through. It's going to be great. So I think I think we're planning the 17th, November 17th through the 21st is where we've targeted it. And so really looking forward to it. It's going to be, it'll be the first. So if you want to be part of this first group, definitely go to TribalHub.com and, you'll find the information on it on our website, or as Luke said, happy to speak to you about it.
Yeah. Okay. So if you've hung with us this long and you're not in tribal technology, hey, kudos for hanging in there. But I mean, I think there is some stuff to learn here, because what I've really appreciated about designing this and working with the TribalHub team is this idea that there was a gap, there's a skills gap that's perceived. And we talked about all the reasons that exists. It's hard, it's technical, it's complicated. There's all these different types of areas where a technology leader might be. And so how do we close that skill gap? How do we equip people? How do we help people? I mean, it's a lot of work, but I think anyone who's a leader is called to work like this. Anyone who's a leader should be saying, what does my team need right now? And what they need right now in 2025 is different than what they needed 5 years ago. And in 5 years, it's going to be different again. So we have to be vigilant and watching for what our people need if their careers are going to be as rich as possible. And how creative can we be? How resourceful can we be to meet those needs and give them a pathway to continue to develop? So I'm really excited to roll this thing out, learn from it, iterate it, continue to make it better and better. And Mike, I'm excited about the next couple days here at the conference.
Yeah,
and
it's going to be fun.
Get to share a little bit about communication, do a little speak in, and you've got all sorts of other great sessions lined up, and
lots of stuff.
It'll be
Lots of
good.
stuff going on. It's great. Community is great. Tribal community is a fantastic community, and that's how we know that this is going to be a beneficial program and certification. And I'm certain there are some leaders who are listening out there today who would be like, boy, this would be great for some people on our team, and we could really benefit from it. And that's really what we're doing this for. This is really meant not just to help the individual, but to really truly help each of the tribes out there. So I'm excited about it. Happy about the next couple of days here.
Yeah.
I'm in California. It's nicer weather than Michigan. So great being here.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank Red Hawk Casino Hotel and Resort again for letting us record in their beautiful conference room and being such amazing hosts. And I'll read us out here. So Magic in the Room is a production of Purpose and Performance Group. You can find all the previous episodes at magicintheroom.com. You can find us on all the socials if you search up Purpose and Performance Group. Magic in the Room is produced by Ethan Babylon of Babylon Productions. Theme music is by Evan Grimm. You can find his music on Apple Music, Spotify, and wherever else you can search up Evan Grimm. Thank you guys for listening. Have a blessed day. We're out.